And as adults, we're constantly trying to find like the weakness and improve this in the kids, but understanding that like children are children, and at some point we need to see and accept them for who they are, and we need to stop trying to control them because we're manifesting our internal crap. Let's see what the child is trying to say to you without saying it to you.
Hey healthcare providers, you're listening to the Burnt Out to Lit Up podcast. Hosted by myself, Erica, and my husband, Michael. We're an OTPT team that understands the healthcare industry's got some serious issues.
Inspired by our own experience with burnout, we've made it our mission and passion to help you navigate your career in healthcare by cultivating wellness, growing both personally and professionally, and advocating for a better workplace.
Whether you are a clinician or manager, new grad or seasoned vet, join us each week as we share interviews, research, stories, and strategies that will give you the tools to go from burnt out to your most lit up self.
Let's dive in.
Hey, welcome to the Burnout to Lit Up podcast.
Hello, everyone.
This is Erica.
And Mike.
And this is your holistic wellness podcast for healthcare professionals.
Yep.
Oh, I'm about to sneeze.
And we're going to keep trying to...
It's okay.
Here we go.
No, it's okay. It went away.
Banana.
Just tell them about that.
So... Oh, God.
Oh, God.
Rest in peace, everyone's speakers out there.
I tried to sneeze away from the mic.
Well, yeah, Erica's absurd with her sneezes. So I try to banana her every time. I don't know if you guys have ever done that before.
But it doesn't work anymore because I'm desensitized. When we first started dating, and you know that sneeze face you're about to get, like when you're about to sneeze, he would say a random fruit. It always happened to be banana, and it distracted me, and I could never sneeze. But then he started to get that I was getting used to that, so then he started to say random things. But then to complete this game, so I would say watermelon, and I would just say different things to him. And now
yours were bad though.
Mine were bad
because what made it work was that, like I would have to say banana like startlingly, like banana.
It's kind of
not
like
yeah. Banana, avocado, whatever, you know.
Tomatoes.
I mean? Yeah.
Yeah.
Not as startling.
But so you tried to banana me, but I'm desensitized. You can't unsneeze me now.
Yeah.
I'm unstoppable.
It's funny.
It's kind of like
everyone's ears are bleeding right now. Just like
I hope
sad.
not. That's just how I sneeze.
Yep, that's totally normal.
I think it's worse when people sneeze and they hold their nostrils in. It's like they want to implode on the inside. If I did that, I would implode because I have so much. I have to let it all out. You know what I mean?
I do know what you mean. Yeah, that's not good. You like give yourself a hernia or something.
I don't have it's not good to keep it all in. You gotta let it out.
For sure. Yeah.
Okay, well.
I hurt my back once sneezing.
Yeah?
Because I'm #30.
No, but
this is 30. Sneeze and I hurt my back.
We should have a segment in an upcoming episode about you're 30 when...
Yeah. ...
because we have a lot of those just between us. I actually, when I hurt my back picking up a patient, it was a pediatric patient. I hurt my back picking him up from the floor, and that was really weird. Like it was an old back pain an old back injury that rekindled like the way I moved to pick this kid up, and sneezing, rolling out of bed. Like, things you take for granted really, really hurt.
I had a patient the other day who hurt himself. He hurt his back getting out of his car. Like, just pivoting and getting out of his car. And I'm like, bro, this is it. Like, it doesn't get any better. Like, this is what it's like to be in your 30s. Like, you're just going to hurt yourself in stupid ways. That's why I'm so concerned about skiing. We're going skiing in 2 weeks.
Yeah,
and I'm like
excited.
And we're taking lessons in Lake Tahoe. And I'm like, I hope I come out like scot-free. You know what I mean?
Is that yet another phrase I'm not familiar with? Scot-free?
You've never heard of scot-free? Like,
no.
I guess that's more like getting away with something. I guess what I mean is like get away like, without any harm.
Still never heard of it, but okay. I learned I learn a new phrase from you like every week still, and we've been together for a really long time.
Maybe I'm just really
well-versed
worldly
and
literarily awesome.
Sure, yeah. I just know a few Cuban phrases. Those are my go-tos.
You just know Espanol.
I know Spanglish. Remember when we were in Spain and we had dinner, and it was a really cute rooftop terrace overlooking the Alhambra. It was the most scenic dinner of my life.
Oh, super cool.
But the thing was that I was hungover from the night before and I had pink eye. So it was a really difficult, I didn't feel like being there, but it was so beautiful. And I got pink eye that night. Like I woke up with just the ugliest, like my eye. If you see like that picture, I'm trying to turn my head so you don't see how ugly that eye is. We started talking to the table next to us, and somehow I told them I spoke Spanglish, and they got a kick out of that. Like they thought that was really funny. It's true. I speak Spanglish. I don't speak perfect Spanish at all. I speak Spanglish.
Yeah, I mean, Miami Spanish is not perfect Spanish either, really.
Well, it's a mix of, Cuban, Colombian, a lot of different things.
It's just like our English is not perfect English. If you think about it, it's like it's like a bastardized regular English, like UK English. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I've always been interested in dialects and languages. Sometimes I'll Google.
Damn colonists messing up the language.
Well, I'm also interested why some people add an R in words that don't have an R, like warsh.
Like warsh.
I remember I Googled that because I was really curious about that, because I like to learn how certain things in languages, like they form, like certain dialects, and that the R it came from people that were of German descent speaking English, and it just kind of got in there. But your dad says it, but you don't say it. I find that interesting that you didn't add the R in Marsh.
Yeah, no, and it's like he doesn't say it all the time. It's just like it's something that sometimes happens. I don't know. It's weird.
I'm very interested. I'm very observant of like people's dialects, and even your family says things. They phrase things differently than my family because we're from Miami. You guys are from Philly. I don't know. I just think it's interesting. Interesting, cool. Okay, so I have a card I pulled this morning, and I thought it was so cool. I didn't want to pick a random card. I want to read to you this card from the morning.
Card from The Universe Has Your Back by, what's her name?
Gabrielle Bernstein.
Gabrielle Bernstein.
Love my cards. When I accept the love of the universe as my primary teacher, I will always be guided back to the light.
Neato.
I have to read that again. When I accept the love of the universe as my primary teacher, I will always be guided back to the light. I love that.
Yeah. You always have more to say about these things than I do, so I'll let you.
No, I don't have to really. I don't really have to go into it too much. I reflect on these sometimes in the morning. I'll read them over, like I'll read them a few times to really let the message sink in, and the message of allowing love to be our guide. And in a world where everything's chaotic and everything feels upside down sometimes, you can always rely on love to guide you. So yeah.
Everyone's pro-love.
Pro-love.
Oh, it's Valentine's Day as we record this.
Yeah. Well, sometimes we record episodes way in advance, and sometimes we record things like the night before. So it's just how we roll. But it's Valentine's Day. We love you guys so much.
We're on a date right now.
This is our podcast date.
We're on a date with all you.
Oh.
Love you guys.
Hashtag love you.
Sunset heart hands.
Sunset heart hands. Put your hand in my hand.
That was a commercial, right? It was
yeah.
It was like the girl. What was that a commercial of?
I don't remember, but it was. She wanted to.
No! It was a Taco Bell commercial because the guy, the boyfriend, was eating like a churro. Like they have like a churro now, and he's eating this churro, and he only has one hand to take the picture, and she's like, "Sunset heart hands," and it's like the sun setting in the distance, and she's like, "Take the picture," and he's like, he like only has one hand.
Oh man, that sounds like me sometimes, doesn't it?
It's essentially you.
Yeah, but I don't make you do sunset heart hands.
Yeah, thank God.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys, and we hope that you guys appreciate us. If you're listening and you're a fan of the show, a great way to send us a little bit of love is writing us a review on iTunes, giving us preferably 5 stars, just showing us some love and appreciation. Those little things may not seem important, but they really help our podcast get more out there.
Yeah.
So
subscribing, rating, liking, all those things.
yes.
You know what we're also trying to really do too is we're really trying to connect with you guys more on social media. I know it's cliche, but it really is the best way to connect with our audience. So if you head over to Instagram, our Burnt Out to Lit Up account, send us a DM if you want to get in touch with us. Send us some love. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. We also have a Facebook group now. It's just search Burnt Out to Lit Up on Facebook, and then the group in there. We're trying to kind of get everyone in so we can start some conversation.
I'm so active on social media for Joy Energy Times, so just bear with me as we get this community online for the podcast together. But if you want to be a pioneer and be one of the first to, be a part of our group, and then years later be like, I was one of the first ones in this like awesome group, because we're gonna get. Wait, what are you looking for?
Pencil.
Okay, yeah, we're gonna get we're really, this commitment to the podcast is long term. So we appreciate you guys so much. Thank you for listening. Today I got the chance to interview Heather. Heather Chauvin. She is a wonderful Canadian woman, mother of 3. Her oldest is 14, and she looks so young. I mean, she had him when she was young, when she was like 18. She shares that on the podcast. But Heather has a podcast called Mom is in Control, and she did a TED Talk. So her TED Talk is amazing, and she shares that she was nervous. I mean, she even shares that in the TED Talk, which it was like some comic relief, because I would want to throw up on stage if I was doing a TED Talk. That's one of my goals one day, by the way. But Heather, she left the social work world, and she offers one-on-one coaching and group coaching and works with moms. And you're going to hear the story now of her story with her son and behaviors and losing herself and her journey with cancer and all these things. Like, she hit the most rock bottom place in her life, and how she used these things to get her to get to a better place. In our society, in our day and age, we like to think that we're in control, and we like to do a lot of things to feel like we're in control, and sometimes that leads us to feel the opposite, like we're out of control. So we go into that, and her stories and her experiences working with others and her own experiences about control, it's going to be really eye-opening, as it was for me. And like, the secret sauce to everything is self-worth, and starting from there. So I think you guys are really going to love this one, and we can't wait.
Enjoy, guys.
So Heather, welcome to the show. I'm really excited to have you here and to chat with you today.
I'm so excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, I watched your TED Talk, and first of all, you're an excellent speaker, and your TED Talk was so valuable. So I love your work.
Thank you. It was terrifying, but that's what life is all about, right? Do the uncomfortable, and I think we're so much harder on ourselves than the way people see us.
Yeah, we are our own worst critics, for sure. So for those listening that don't know you, can you share a little bit more about yourself, and who is Heather, and all the cool stuff that you're involved in?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm the founder of Mom is in Control, and I'm a mother of 3 boys. I used to be a social worker turned online business coach. Actually, I'm not an online business coach. What did I mean by that? I meant I turned online. What happened was, I used to be a social worker, and then I shifted my my career. There was something inside of me that wanted to speak to a different crowd of women and parents and children. And so what I decided to do was bring my message online. And because I did that, I left the social work world. But yeah, I'm all about helping parents feel in control of their lives. It was from my background in what I saw in the industry and social work, but also as a parent and a mother of 3 boys who are 14, 9, and 6. And my 14-year-old was the first one that cracked me open to what I call parenting as personal growth on steroids.
Wow. Wow, that's interesting. I've never heard that. Can you share more about like how you got this shift inside of you to take everything you've learned from social work and with your first son into what you do now, and what is it that you do?
Yeah, so about 5 years ago, okay, so my parenting, I want to call it career, started 14 years ago. And when my son was 4 years old, of course, I'm a social worker and I'm in this mental health field, and I have a degree or my minor was in child development. And I would go home and I would look at my son, and he wouldn't do what I wanted him to do. And so I started screaming and yelling, and he's throwing toys across the room, and I'm starting to get calls from the school, and I'm asking myself, what's wrong? What's wrong? Like, why can't I figure this out? I feel like I'm failing as a mother. And, I was asking all the right questions to all the resources that I had access to. And there was still something inside of me that kept saying, Heather, there's something more here. There's something more here. And so I started listening to that voice. And because I started listening to that voice instead of what society wanted me to be, that led me to meditation. And so when I started meditation and understanding mindfulness, I came from a place of wanting to get my son to meditate, and actually created a program called Teach Your Kid to Meditate. And a lot of people come to that program because they want their child to meditate. And it's like, but why? But why? But why? And so when I started teaching this skill and strategy to him, I was like, you need to calm down. You need to figure out how to like control your anger and anxiety. What I realized he was actually mirroring all of my crap. He was showing me where I needed to grow as a woman, as a human being. And so that journey kept unraveling in my parenting. And when I had that little aha moment, I started investing in myself, which included investing financially, physically, mentally, emotionally, and really starting to love and respect myself on a deeper level. And as I was doing that, what I was noticing is this tools and strategies that I was learning as a person, whether it was, emotional intelligence or anything else, I could then coach my children and say, hey, like, how does that feel? And so what I noticed was I started feeling more in control of my life. I started feeling more in control emotionally. I felt like I had access to what was inside of me, of what I truly desired. And then that allowed me to become less reactive as a mother. And so as I started on this journey, I kept going and going and going. And then that was kind of, I would say, the prerequisite for what was yet to come, which was the TEDx talk that you watched, called Dying to Be a Good Mother. And in this moment, at that time, I was just cracking open to the possibility that meditation is one tool, but it wasn't the end all be all for everything. And I started building my business. I was doing the hustle. I was push, like, neglecting my own needs. And because I did that, I burnt out, and I didn't even realize that my body was in crisis mode. And because my body was in crisis mode, finally I surrendered when my abdomen was so swollen that I looked like I was pregnant. People started to ask me like, oh, are you expecting again? And I'm like, wow, am I this disconnected from my body that I don't even know what I look like anymore? That one night I went to Emerge, and they did a CT and blood work, and on the spot told me I had cancer. And in that moment, Erica, I remember feeling like I knew I was sick, and I felt like I was running away from it. So that completely changed how I show up as a mother. That completely changed the work that I do now. It completely changed how I structure my days, how I see the world, because I realize as a culture, and you don't have to have children to feel this way, as a culture, women, we're trying to prove ourselves for something. And it is culturally acceptable to be depleted, exhausted, miserable, tired. And I'm just here to shake things up and to show people now that you don't have to get a diagnosis in order to slow down.
Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That last part, that something I was talking about on another episode about, I talk about this in my courses I do on burnout, where people wear that as a badge of honor. They wear exhausted as some badge of honor, and it's something like we should all be talking about, and that's how we relate to one another. But I love that you're debunking that and getting real with, no, that's not how we as women should, or anyone should feel, and it's not a badge of honor. And I love how you're turning that around. As far as what you said, like being disconnected from your body, and getting to that point where you're diagnosed, what were your thoughts and what was your experience in like reconnecting with yourself, and how was that journey like for you?
Well, I want to say it was terrifying. I mean, that I don't think that underestimates what was happening to me, but it was really, really uncomfortable because I think everything I was resisting, I was now backed into a corner and I had nowhere to turn. I really had to start looking at everything, and I couldn't use my excuses anymore to hide behind. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, like every excuse. I don't have time. I don't have the energy. I don't have the money. I can't. I just started slowly asking myself, like, how do I want to feel today? Danielle LaPorte's work, The Desire Map, was big. Coincidentally, I think I started listening to her book. Are you familiar with her work?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think I started listening to her book previously to getting sick, and then feeling like it was luxurious and, I didn't understand. It was new agey. And then I realized, oh, this is what it meant. And then as I started getting quiet with myself, in those moments when I would be terrified and afraid and going, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I so afraid? Why am I so afraid? I realized, again, mom is in control. I felt out of control. I didn't know how to manage my fear. I didn't know how to manage I didn't know how to feel alive. And I truly believe that it was my fear of like not knowing how to live, like not knowing how to like feel joy, express gratitude. I was so depleted that I didn't know how. And that was terrifying because it's like, okay, I'm at my rock bottom. I don't know how to get out of this. And so moment by moment, every single day, I had to ask myself, how do I want to feel? And I would say, I want to feel strong and alive. Okay, cool. The food that you're putting in your mouth right now, is that going to get you closer to feeling alive or further away? And so every bite that I would take, I'm like, yep, this is going to get me closer to feeling alive. Okay, awesome. Are you going to lay in bed all day, or you want to be stronger? Like, get out of bed, like take a shower, walk down the street. What do you want? How do you want to feel? And I just had to slowly, like one step at a time, start asking myself those questions, and then listening and acting on what my soul was really craving. And that led me closer to my children. So all the things I was trying to change within my son, with his anger and anxiety, and I had, two other boys at the time. Obviously I still have them, but the little one was a year old. And I'm just like, how do I want to feel? I want to feel connected. Okay, great. What does that look like? That didn't have to look like going on every trip and, doing all this crazy stuff. It was just like, how can you cultivate and create that connection with your children now in this moment?
Yeah. So you used your pain as a point to ask yourself, continuously check in with yourself, how do I want to feel? And that actually leads into this question I have after watching your talk. You talk about the things that people want, and it's not really that question, it's about how we want to feel. So what was that aha moment like for you in terms of discovering that, and how did that help you in your recovery?
Well, I feel like I just kept asking. I think, like I said, I think the book, The Desire Map, really gave me an aha moment to that, because it was like, you're not after the money. What do you think the money is going to give you? Why are you hustling so much? Why are you trying to be so controlling with your children? Why are you doing that? And so I would ask myself these questions. I'm like, well, I'm doing that because I don't want to feel like I've failed as a mother. Okay, awesome. If you don't want to feel like you're failing, what do you want to feel like? I want to feel successful. Great. How can you feel successful in this moment? Okay, well, I could take a shower. That's a huge success. And so what I often find is people are jumping from like 0 to 60 and they're not living in the moment. You know, it's cliche to say, but it's like, I will be happy when this will happen when.
Yeah.
But the truth is you have to be back here. It's like, what is success now? What is success now? If a core desired feeling in my life today is connection, and I'm having this conversation with you, I'm not multitasking. Like, I'm here, I'm all in, I'm connected to this conversation. It's like, how do you want to feel in your life? Too often we're after the goal, we're after the material, we're after all of those things. And the beauty is, once you start giving yourself permission to go after goals with feelings, what you're noticing is you're achieving those results, you're achieving those desires. But you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it wasn't the money I was after. Oh, I guess it wasn't, the car that I really wanted. Oh, I guess it wasn't hitting that quota, or achieving that relationship goal. It was the journey that got you there.
Yeah. Yeah. I love what you touched upon about the mindfulness piece. I have a friend that she reminds me of this all the time. She's like, whenever I'm somewhere, I'm there. I'm only thinking about that. When I'm at work, I'm thinking about work. When I'm at the gym, I'm thinking about working out. So I think what stresses us out is thinking about the things we want, and that robs us of this moment, because we literally only have now. It is, and I think people, it can't be talked, like, it can't be emphasized more that this is what we have now. So what are we, and our life is created, it's moments strung together, the moments that we have now. And I think that's beautiful what you touched upon. Where are you now with your health journey, if I may ask?
Yeah, so everything's great now. It's been 5+ years since diagnosis, and I think where I'm at now is I've healthier than I've ever been. And like in my entire life, I was 27 when I was diagnosed, 32, almost 33 now. I was an early, what you call an old soul, came into the world with wisdom and then just started parenthood really. I was 18 when I became a mother. So for many, many years, there was a lot of like trauma and not feeling good enough in my life. And so through motherhood and through my experience with cancer, I've had to really tell myself, like, keep going, keep going, keep going. You are worthy of going to the next level in your life, Heather. And so every layer that I'm constantly pulling back, it's believing that I am enough right now in this moment, but that I deserve more.
Yeah, kind of like, I used to work with a coach, and she reminded me, you could be a work in progress and a masterpiece at the same time. And that really changed something for me. Because it's basically like what you just said, and accepting yourself for where you are, but knowing that you can always strive for more, to be your best self.
Yes, it's so crazy because you have to get really honest with yourself and ask yourself why you're pushing so hard, why you're not recovering. And I mean, cancer, it's not something that you beat. It's not that I want to race. I've had a lot of friends and colleagues who haven't made it, and they worked their ass off. Like, they did everything they possibly could to beat a disease. And sometimes, it's like a lottery. Like, you are not guaranteed. Just because you eat your green vegetables and you do your yoga and you meditate and journal and do everything woo-woo doesn't mean you're guaranteed a pass. And so now when people always ask me, what are you, where's your health journey and what does that look like? I'm healthy. I feel great. I, of course, am constantly checking in with myself. I don't live in fear. I don't live in fear, but I do understand that life is temporary and I have one opportunity and I've been given extra time. And so what am I going to do with that time?
Yeah. Yeah. I love that outlook. And I'm gathering that you just have gained so much and from this experience. So what's been, before I shift onto behaviors, and I really want to dive into that, but what's been the biggest takeaway the biggest lesson you've learned in your own health journey?
Um, it would have to go back to worthiness. It sounds awful, but I feel like cancer gave me a permission to start taking care of myself, which is awful. Awful, awful to say out loud. It's like, why do we have to get sick or ill or why does bad shit need to happen before we do something about it? Why do we need to get to a rock bottom before we have an intervention with ourselves or someone physically does that with us? Why can't we all just be like, you know what? I want to live this amazing, abundant life, and I am worthy of doing that. And I think I definitely discovered that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know you talk about that in your TED Talk, and thank you for sharing that, because as our audience of healthcare professionals, I know that we typically put ourselves last. And how can we be there for someone if we can't take care of ourselves? And I know that's like, pretty cliche now, but it's true, because you've experienced hitting your rock bottom, and I've experienced it in my own way. And it's this moment where you realize that you are worth it, and you need to give yourself that permission.
Yep. Yep. And I see it in the motherhood community and the parenthood community, I'm kind of going on this like rampage with the motherhood memes that I see. But I'm like, guys, every time you see a share or a like or a comment, I understand that there is, a deep, deep sense of like our love and belonging in the world, but we don't need to create connection with our pain. We can create connection with our healing. And I want more people to have conversations about challenging the status quo, because there's not a lot of people out there that are willing to say, yeah, parenting is challenging and hard, but it doesn't have to kill you. And if I see another mom meme I saw one the other day about, if you're not tired, you're doing it wrong.
Oh.
And I was triggered.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you must be seeing the mom memes more. I'm not a mom, so I guess I'm not exposed to them, but I'm exposed to just different kinds of meme that glorify this sort of concept of tiredness and misery.
Yeah.
And hustle. I don't like the word hustle.
No, it's awful. Any healthcare provider will tell you, right? Like even in social work, we're brainwashed. And I know you're different type in the, different industry, but in social work, it's like your front lines and you give. And it's all about like taking the shirt off your back all the fucking time for people. And it gets really annoying after a while, because you're like, my cup is empty. How can I be anything to anyone if I don't even know where to get the oxygen mask?
Yeah. Yeah. And that goes back to like a whole culture, like a cultural talk about what the expectations are. And, I see in other industries, like we're in the Bay Area, so it's like tech industries. I know they have meditation rooms and they have plenty of opportunities for their cups to be full, and employers understand that. But in healthcare, it's a different story. And especially, even not in just like in other areas as well. So I think we need to change that conversation, change that cultural expectation. And that kind of, the question is, where does that start? That starts with people like you and me that we don't advocate for that. Like we don't subscribe to that.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah. So talking about like shifting gears, because I'm so curious about your experience with your son. And I know I worked in pediatrics, and it's so easy when you work in pediatrics. I've seen this happen so many times where we we get mad because our patient, our kid is not doing what we want them to do. And it's like, if you could just hold the pencil, sometimes we don't understand that they're not adults. So, in your own experience with managing and working with your child and helping other moms to do the same, like what's been the biggest revelation in that?
Yes. So, I mean, what I really love is what we have to realize as adults is we've created the rules, and children are vulnerable because they typically do not have a voice. I think culturally we are moving to a space where children are gaining more voice, more sense of like belonging in the world. But most of the times it's do as I say, not as I do. And what I realized and what I kind of have adopted in my own life with children's behavior and with the parents that I work with is your children's behavior is speaking to you. And every behavior is a language. So we have to be very conscious of how we are projecting our beliefs and stories onto our children. And so in the parenting world, like being a parent myself, parenting is easy to market to because we are driven by fear typically, right? Unless you're like an overly mindful person. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about how many products are out there geared towards parents that are fear driven, and around food, around exercise, like the medical model, everything. You'll do anything for your child, right? Mm-hmm. So then you buy into this like, oh, your child needs to be in therapy every day for the rest of their life because they have a learning disability or, some whatever sensory processing stuff, or there's anger, there's anxiety, or there's an imperfection. And as adults, we're constantly trying to find like the weakness and improve this in the kids, but understanding that like children are children, and at some point we need to see and accept them for who they are, and we need to stop trying to control them because we're manifesting our internal crap on the outside. So when I'm working with parents, I say, okay, let's look at the behavior. Let's see what the child is trying to say to you without saying it to you. And so, example, I remember I had a client one time and she came to me and her son's 6 years old and he was so angry and he was so frustrated and he would kick her and he would swear at her. She's like, Heather, I feel out of control. I don't know what to do. And, we've done all the therapies. I've contacted every single person I possibly can. I'm at my wit's ends. I'm ready to do the personal development work on myself, but I just don't know. And I said, let's get started. I said, first of all, understand that your son just projects in anger. Your son is speaking to you. He's saying, I feel out of control. I feel out of control. I do not understand what my body is telling me. I do not understand what my nervous system is telling me. And this woman felt out of control emotionally in her life because there was some situations going on. And so it was little subtle things. And so instead of trying to verbalize with him all the time, like, why are you doing that? And she's yelling and screaming. She could intuitively see his red, green, and yellow zones. And so the green zones are what I call where you're feeling awesome in your life. The red zones are when the child is having a tantrum. So she could determine his yellow zone and what would happen right before he would go into tantrum mode. And then she was able to kind of sidetrack the behavior and get out of it. So creating more energy in her life, creating more time and space for her as well.
Oh, wow. Yeah. I love these examples. And I've seen so many different behaviors in my work, and parents are, sometimes it just baffles them and they don't know what to do. And it's this feeling, like you said, parents wanting to gain control. So they feel like they have to act a certain way to gain control, but then it creates further distance with their children because, again, we think that they're small adults, but they're not. So I love what you said, that their behaviors is their language. As far as the red, the green, the yellow zones, that reminds me a lot of the zones of regulation. And the different types of, okay, these are the emotions and behaviors that the kids are demonstrating. And then there are activities that you can do with in each zone, so to promote some like more like proprioceptive input, or maybe like more from a sensory standpoint, like some of the sensory needs. You know, from your experience, do you find that it's because there's like a lot of different especially in OT, sensory is just like huge, and there's a lot of schools of thought there. But, you know, from your experience, do you incorporate some sort of sensory component into your work?
Definitely do that. And I feel like I don't have formal education in sensory stuff, and I don't have OT background, but it's intuitive. It's like, what does your child need from you? Right? Does your child respond well to certain things? Is it touch? Is it smell? Is it like, you know, even just music? What is the environment like? I feel like so many of us are removed from our instincts, and we're go, 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 do, 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 and we forget to be in the world. And we're teaching our children to do the same. We're teaching our children to forget how to self-regulate. So when I'm talking to parents, I'm like, what do you think is going on with your child? And they'll be like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. He just reacts. He just does this. And I'm like, what do you really think is happening with your child? And when I can get the parent to like calm down enough to like be and to think and to create that mental space for themselves to ask themselves that questions, what they do find is he's overwhelmed. He's overscheduled. He's freaking out at school because he feels stupid in class, and and so there's the shame that's coming up, and he's overwhelmed and he's frustrated. So I have many, many stories from my own parenting, from the clients that I've worked with about what do you think is going on? What do you agree with? What do you not agree with? I mean, having the like homework conversation with, my children. I have like 3 boys. They're all school age. 2, I have one that loves doing homework, one that does not love doing homework. Well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to sit there and, for 3 hours at night and have an epic meltdown with my child. I want to create connection with him. So how can we create a system within our home and within the educational system that will work for my child? And I've seen it again and again and again. When I have a teacher on board that's willing to co-create with my child and be like, okay, let's take a little bit of the pressure off, because pressure is not going to make him perform a different way. It actually shuts him down. So every child's different. And I think as parents, we need to start asking ourselves, what do I intuitively know that my child needs, rather than like, what is the world telling me that I need? And then take the feedback from what you're getting from the healthcare providers, because I'm a huge fan of that. Like we all need a village, right? We need people around us, but then filter it through, does that feel good to me? Do I agree with that? Why or why not? And then relay that back to the healthcare provider. My youngest one is in speech therapy, hasn't been diagnosed with anything, but he's in speech. And I can even observe the speech pathologist who's telling me like, we need to do this and we need to do this. And she's saying it in a very anxious way. And I'm like, calm down. Like, I love and see and accept my son for who he is today. And of course, I can get perfectionist about this and have all sorts of supports around him. Or, we can do this in a very sustainable way. 1, where it's financially sustainable. 2, I am not going to be that mom that is running from activity. I want my children to feel connected. I want them to feel safe. I want them to feel like they are enough. And I feel like we're breeding this, I'm not enough, I need to do more, I need to hustle, into our children at a very young age.
Yeah. Wow. You hit upon so many things now that I resonate with, especially just coming out of working in pediatrics. Like, I know there were some kids where we told the parents, like, they need a break from therapy. Like, they need to go to the park. Like, we had some kids where I'm thinking about like 2 in particular, where I told the parents that would be in the best, that would be the best recommendation, because we're over scheduling kids. Everything has a place and a purpose. Therapy has a place and a purpose, but so does playing outside. So does connecting, having that hour with parents. And I think, we, in our society as adults, we're overbooking ourselves. And so for kids, there's been, from what I've seen on specials on TV, not that I haven't read latest research, but from what I've seen on TV and certain specials, that there's an increase in diagnoses of anxiety in kids. And I think, a lot of it points back to we're overscheduling, overbooking, and we're getting so out of touch of what our basic human needs are, and everything has to be an achievement and accomplishment. My kid or myself, I have to be doing XYZ to gain this status, to feel good about myself. And we're people pleasing. I think this all kind of stems from people pleasing.
Yeah, and I feel like we have so much access to information now, and so the people pleasing, the perfectionism, and then it just continues to snowball, right? Mm-hmm. I mean, there's the light and the dark to everything. The light side of this is we're limitless, right? We're limitless beings. Our potential is endless. We're constantly going to grow and evolve and improve and be better. But the dark side of that is you're going to say, I'm not enough, I'm not enough, I'm not enough. And you're going to go down this rabbit hole and you're going to take everyone down with you. And I think with technology and the media and these belief systems start to spew everywhere. And then someone like myself, who's not a physician, I find myself in a position where I say to parents, well, I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you that. But great, you have a diagnosis. Awesome. What did that give you? Nothing. Maybe it gave you access to more funding. But seriously, what did that give you? Now people, because they've labeled you or your child, now they'll look at you. The truth is, the child is saying, I'm suffering. I'm struggling. Can somebody please pay attention to me? And our solution is diagnose, label, and then of course we can have the whole medication talk. And I'm not totally against medication. I feel like Western medicine saved my life because I literally was in crisis mode. Mm-hmm. But my point is, it can't be an end all be all. We need to look at the whole child. We need to look at the whole system, and we need to start using our own brains and say, what do you value? I feel like too many of us are brainwashed from what my doctor told me, what my sister told me, what my mom told me. And yeah, like you said, the people pleasing, not wanting to make other people uncomfortable. But because I chose to make other people uncomfortable, I believe that's why I'm still here today. And also looking at my children, every single day I have to say to them, you are enough. Okay, you didn't get an A+. You are enough. Okay, your teacher told you this. You are enough. Okay, this kid told you that. You are enough. I just want my children to know that they are loved and they belong here in our home, within our family. And I'm determined to become the best version of myself without killing myself trying to do it in a sustainable way. Mm-hmm. That I need to become the person that I want my children to be. And if I can tell them and show them, the power of their mind and the power of their thoughts and the power of positive thinking, and they can get an A+ in that area of their life, I would pay anything to guarantee that over, which career path they choose, because anyone will be successful in their life and any child will be successful in their life if they know that they are capable of doing anything they put their mind to.
Absolutely. And I think the rise of these emotional regulation techniques, the good news is that they are gaining a lot of attention. When we were kids, there was none like this, at least in my world, it didn't exist. So it's I'm happy to see it, and I see it more and more. There's yoga and meditation in schools, and although there's a lot of people that aren't open or aware of this. So where can someone start, like a parent start, in terms of getting on board with this, imparting emotional intelligence onto their child, and what are some basic first steps?
Well, basic first steps is we need to truly stop trying to control everybody else and take a look at ourselves first. Number one, I get emails chronically. I get messages on Instagram like, how can I get my kid to listen to me? How can I get, why is Johnny so angry? Why blah, blah, blah. And you have to put it back on yourself. So number one is, what are they mirroring in you? Are you listening to your child? Are you angry and you don't know how to control your anger? So, and then if the answer is no, I'm a huge advocate of, I know there's, of course there's going to be debates on either side about meditation, because now a lot of people are talking about how it can traumatize people. If they're whatever. And I'm like, okay, there's always going to be the pros and cons to everything. Use your lungs, calm down, create space for your brain to think and breathe. And like, you need to unplug, just like you need to shut everything else off. Your mind needs to do the same thing. And consciously just focusing your energy and attention on your breath. You do have time for it. The reason why you feel like you don't have time is because you haven't prioritized it, because you don't prioritize yourself. Journaling, huge fan of journaling. I mean, your brain will try to be perfection about that as well, but just letting your thoughts out, like, what do you want? What do you crave? What do you desire? And just starting to affect, like, how do things make you feel? How do you feel when you eat certain foods? How do you feel when you hang out with certain people? How do you feel when you do certain activities? All of these things, this is emotional intelligence, is just becoming aware.
Becoming aware and teaching your children or your pediatric patients how to develop that awareness. Is it just by like just this curiosity, almost like just this curiosity of like, what are you feeling in this moment? How does this feel? How does it taste? How does it smell? And starting to get those questions rolling.
Yep. And I think because you have a lot of, therapists on your like listening, I think it's really important that you start practicing what you preach, and just start using start incorporating little strategies. I have a few speech therapist clients, and they came in wondering about their own personal and family life, and then realizing that they're transitioning. They're like, Heather, now I want to start teaching these skills to my clients, and they're watching how the traditional models are not working for them, and incorporating new skills and strategies. And she said that it's drastically improved her practice and how the results that her kids are seeing just by introducing meditation and mindful-based stress reduction techniques.
Yeah, actually, working alongside speech language pathologists, in my own experience, one of the biggest things I get from them, because in OT school, we have at least a lecture or two about behaviors, and we have a few more about sensory, but in speech therapy school, they don't get that. So that's the biggest disconnect I've seen working with SLPs that are in pediatrics, because they see it as, I need to get this goal. We need to say, I don't know, this many words, or we need to practice these words or whatever this day, but the child's behaviors, he's behaving this way. And I think that's one of the biggest disconnects. I think, as far as speech therapists that are working with kids, and like understanding that, yes, you have a goal as a speech therapist. Like, we have goals that we need to get done, but the kids, they're communicating with us through their tantrums, through their meltdowns, and we can't necessarily get frustrated because they're not doing what we want. We need to focus on how we could get to their level and speak to them, even if it means the whole session is breathing,
Yeah, you just got to start where the child's at.
Yeah, I love that. I love that you work with a diverse population. What's one of your favorite things that you do with your kids that really grounds them?
Well, I'm like, what do I do? I feel like when I started this process, I was big into like the tools and the strategies and the techniques. And now I feel like it's just morphed into our lifestyle and our way of being. I actually, if I had to give some unconventional advice, I don't give that much credit to tantrums. So when my children are in the red zone, I work with a lot of people who are like, I don't know how you do that. Like, you are my guru. And I'm like, trust me, it takes time. You got to get there. but I don't respond. I'm non-reactive when my when my children are having tantrums. I give them complete space to express their emotion. It typically lasts a lot less, like less time than typical.
Mm-hmm.
Of like, the when you're engaging with it. And I spend a lot of time talking to my kids and just cuddling with them. And I feel like it sounds unconventional. You're like, what does that have to do with self-regulation? It has a lot to do with it. I give myself and my children a lot of space to just be and to express themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to say that in my practice, when I was treating kids that were having tantrums, and based off of my knowledge of this kid, like really knowing this kid, most of the time it was a behavior to gain something that they wanted, or attention, or using it. And then we could go into like, there's a difference between like a sensory meltdown and a tantrum. But if it's clearly just like a tantrum, I give them the space, and I would encourage them to, like you said, feel what they feel. And most of the time, if I kept playing with the toys, they were right back there with me playing with the toys, because they realized their tantrum didn't work.
Yep. Children, I call them emotional manipulators.
Mm-hmm.
It's they're good at it, and then they become masters at it, and we're like, oh, how did I get here? And I'm like, yep, just revisit.
Yeah, so I love that it's this lifestyle for you now, and you might have to get started with certain tools and techniques, but then it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes just a way of living. And that's like anything in life, a diet doesn't work. It's just a healthy lifestyle. So in this sense, it's, tricks and like tips and tricks, at first will work, but you need to make it a part of your lifestyle. So I love that. And do you have any like just quick little resources where a parent can get, or anyone can get started? Like, is there like an app or a YouTube or anything for a basic kid meditation that someone can begin with?
I like the Headspace app. I mean, there's a lot of resources out there, and but I know Headspace has adult and children's now, and I feel like they're constantly refining it. I feel like that's a great place to start.
Yeah, I love Headspace. That's the one I use. I've been using it for 2 years.
Nice.
So from what I really understand, like I wanted to say before, but now I remember that one of the biggest things is for us to look inward and look at how we're modeling behaviors, and instead of forcing control externally, looking inside of us and getting clear with what we're doing, getting connected with who we are, and then and role modeling that to our kids. Is that really like just like the meat and potatoes of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and seeing and understanding that our children are not an extension of us. We will mirror each other. They will definitely teach us how to grow, but they are their own, spiritual beings having a human experience, and we have to stop pretending that they're, another arm or leg, and they're so intertwined, and it's such an intimate relationship, but they're speaking to us either verbally or non-verbally, and we have to realize that we matter in the world, and we are human, and we're evolving creatures as well, like beings. And if we stop focusing on ourselves, we're going to die. And that might just be like your soul will die, your spirit will die. And then you're like, who am I? You wake up in the morning, you're like, who am I? I'm not this person I once was. And you have to really check yourself, because life will give you what you need to learn. They always say it happens. What do they say? It happens for you, not to you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that phrase. Things. Wait, it's what you said. It's just like saying it differently. I'm trying to remember it. Things, or you can allow yourself to see things happening to you or for you. So yeah, it's basically the same thing. Mm-hmm. So what events do you have? I know you have a few things on your site. What sort of events do you have coming up?
Event wise, I do have depending on when this is released, but I've been starting to do 1-day women's leadership events. So it's just helping women lead the life that they want to be living, whether that's in parenting or business or their health, just taking back control of the life that you want. So I have those coming up. Everything is on my website at heatherchauvin.com. And then throughout the year, we open applications to my mastery coaching program, which is just helping you actually implement. You'll begin to learn the strategies and the tools, but it's all about implementing, getting that support and community around you. And women have come in, they're from all walks of life. And so all of this information is on my website, including the link to the podcast. So the Mom is in Control podcast.
Mom is in Control podcast. Is that also your Instagram handle?
Yes.
Mom is in Control. Okay, awesome. Yep. Yeah, I'll link everything in the show notes. I thank you so much for imparting your on us, like your story, your wisdom, your experiences. It's been really insightful for me, and I'm sure for our listeners. I have one last question. What is your most lit up self?
Oh man, I feel like I've seen sparks of her. And I have to feel like I feel like in my most lit up self is when I just feel so passionate and excited, and I don't care what anyone else is thinking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. You're listening to yourself.
Yeah, and for whatever reason in that moment, it's like the more I play, the more I give myself permission to want what I want, the more I mother myself and nurture myself. I feel in alignment, and I don't care what other people are thinking.
Love that. I love that so much. Thank you, Heather. It's been great.
Thanks, Erica.